Greetings, gamer guys and gals. Welcome to part 52 of my Let's Play Fire Emblem 5, Thracia 776, and in today's episode, we're going to be heading right into it. Leaving the troubled waters of the river Thracia behind him, Leif approached Raedric's stronghold, Castle Munster. There, emboldened by news of Leif's victory, the citizens seized the opportunity to flee. However, they were caught in the crossfire of two forces. The Magi, led by Ced, who were trying to defend the civilians, and the Knights of Munster, who were determined to stop them. The region had become a war zone, and the fighting grew worse with each day. This is arguably an incredibly interesting chapter. There's a lot of things we can do in order to gain experience points if we wanted, and there's also means by which we could just immediately trivialize this chapter. By the way, we are taking the trivializing route. I hope you don't mind. However, with that being said, I do need to manage items and deployment of my units. So I'll see you in just a moment. And I am back, everyone, and we have some interesting developments. We're only bringing 8, which is the bare minimum here. I strongly recommend that if you're going to do my strategy, that you don't bring any of the magic units that you are going to want to keep from fatiguing. You need to be mindful of fatigue over the next couple of chapters. We have 5 stamina drinks, and I'm not afraid to use them for very necessary units, but particularly if you can, you want to save them for the last couple of chapters. They are grueling, and your best units need to be taken. So we need a rescue and a warp use, and that's basically it. We will have this entire chapter done with that. None of our other units are actually useful. I mean, if we could only bring Leif, Laura, and Shroff, we would have everything we need to in order for me to trivialize this chapter. Which sounds like a little bit crazy of a statement to be made, but this chapter is entirely trivial. We also get a preferential weapon for Leif that is actually the most user-friendly preferential weapon in this game. There's, I think, 5 users that can use it, which is kind of interesting. And we're also going to be making a hard decision, not very hard for me, but a hard decision between 2 units that we can recruit in this chapter. So be mindful of that. Everybody else here I'm only bringing just in case things go awry, but because of the earliness of the particular chapter and how quick we're going to beat it, if something goes awry on turn 1 or 2, we're just going to reset. It's the smartest way to deal with this. And in fact, there are a couple of chapters in the endgame that I would dare say you want to trivialize just because of how difficult they are. And that is pretty much the last chapter and onward. Every chapter from that point forward you want to trivialize. If you can. If you have the stuff to do it, I highly recommend it. It might seem kind of cheap. It might seem kind of silly. It might even seem kind of like counterproductive. So if you want to play the game without trivializing it, by all means, please do. I have on many occasions, and I can tell you of an absolute certainty that the game is more conducive to you using the tools that the game offers you. Granted, many of the tools that I have in my arsenal, I have captured, taken, absconded from the enemies. So there is that. Realistically speaking, this is the absolute last chapter in the game in which your mounted units can be mounted. So, if you want to take advantage of that, because this chapter is wholly less difficult than any other late game chapter in this game, I would say don't trivialize it if you want to use your mounted units one last hurrah. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Chapter 23, The Fiend's Lair. Sir said Raedric has found our last safe house. There's nowhere for us to shelter the children now. Blast. Would that I could escort them out of here myself, but that would leave our rebellion without a leader. There just isn't anyone up to the task of getting the children to safety on their own. I could carry out that duty if you'd allow. Who goes there? Who in blazes are you? A simple traveler, nothing more. I heard about the fighting that had broken out here. If you wish to spirit the children away from this foul place, perhaps I could help. Or are you unwilling to trust me? I sense your heart is enveloped in a gentle wind. You don't seem to mean us harm. Just who are you, exactly? You wear the robes of the royal priesthood. We haven't the time for me to explain my life story, I'm afraid, but I give you my word that I'll see the children to safety. You can either trust me or not. Choose now. Very well. I have little alternative but to believe you. One more thing. When you flee with the children, please, you must make sure this sword escapes the city as well. A sword? I'll gladly smuggle it out of Munster, of course, but do you realize what this weapon is? It's Braggy's blade. I'd heard it was being kept in Castle Munster, under heavy guard. It was, but I saw to that. You see, Raedric is protected by an enchantment upon his own blade, the Latrian Fang. Braggy's blade is the only thing that can breach its foul magic. I see. So what would you have me do with it? The blade can only be wielded by a swordsman of holy blood. A rebel leader, Prince Leaf, is marching his liberation army here as we speak. He can use it. I want you to deliver it to him. I understand. I'll see that it reaches his hands. You've my gratitude. Oh, Sir Priest, you must give me your name at least. Forgive my rudeness. I am Sias of House Veltomer.
What? Those peasants dare to flee Munster?
I'm afraid so, sire. And it seems that Magi have been sheltering children. They're making a run for it right now.
That's unacceptable. Those cattle are the only bargaining chips we have to get the Empire to overlook this mess. Phaedon, cut them down in the streets, slay every last little brat. Let's show every damn peasant in Munster what the price of fleeing is.
Leave it to me, my lord.
You call Lord Raedric?
Alfand, I want you to take command of the castle gates. Guard them with your life. I hear Leonster's stray mutt is marching on Munster, and the Magi have already breached the castle once. They must not be allowed to seize control of the gates as well.
Of course, sire. We'll take every measure to secure the city.
We've reached Munster at last. It appears the fighting between the Magi and the Knights of Munster has broken out into the streets. Things have escalated since last we were here. The Knights seem weaker than before, but they're still a force to be reckoned with. Without the Magi's aid, I fear seizing Munster will be nigh impossible. Oh, what's this? Look, there's movement around the city. Whole groups of children are fleeing Munster. What? There's no time to lose. Let's move. I must say, the story in this game is so incredibly exceptional. I absolutely adore it. Absolutely adore it. Let's see. What we have here is a new unit. Yes, Sias joins you. If you were playing this game pretty casually and not at all trivializing this game, you would notice that Sias is an incredible monster of a unit, and he will cause you very much issue throughout several of the recent and previous chapters. Sias is a very interesting character. He's a high priest, follow-up critical modifier of 0, pretty good base stats for a level 12 high priest. They're not the greatest, if I'm being honest. They do lack some combative force. He is definitely magically very inclined, and he's powerful with any kind of staff and light magic particularly. He has pretty decent growth rates, but the problem is he only has 8 levels to grow, and the rest of this game is very few and far between. We are at the ending gates of this chapter. 50% HP, 0% strength, 35% magic, 40% skill and speed, 55% luck, 15% defense, 10% con, and 2% movement. He is what I would consider an intriguing unit, but what I don't like about Sias being a high priest is, even though I know that's what he has been trained into being, he is a child of Arvis, considered a bastard child of Arvis, and he is of House Veltomer, as he said. He actually has major holy blood, major Faller holy blood, so technically he can use the very same Valflame that Arvis is capable of using, yet in this game he's only capable of using light magic. I sort of wish he was a sage just as well as Asbel is, so that he would have access to fire, thunder, wind, light, and staves. It would be incredible, considering that, especially if they gave you like the Valflame or just really good fire magics. There's really no real good fire magics in this game. I think you can get a couple of Bolganones, maybe, towards the end game, but I've never even attempted it, because there is only 2 good users of fire tomes in this game, and one of them doesn't want to use fire, because even though he has an A for fire to start with, he has the best tome in the game. So why would you ever use fire? Doesn't matter how strong it is. The only other user of fire, and I know this isn't really talking about Sias, but she is a B route exclusive, and yes, you can use fire with other units, but she has the highest weapon rank, and upon promotion she basically gets A. So it's unfortunate, because what it means is that there's good thunder mages, there's good wind mages, there's only one dark mage, and there's plenty of light magic users in this game, but hardly any light magic. But there's not really any good fire magic users. So, moving on, Sias has an unknown party affiliation, so he's not buffing. I think he just buffs all of your teammates in this chapter with his 5 authority stars regardless. I'm not entirely sure on that, but that's 3% each. So, 15% hit and avoid, that would be incredible if so. He has 3 vigor stars, which is awesome, 7 movement, which is far and away more than you're going to find on any other high priest or healer light magic user bound mage or sage or so on and so forth in this game. So it's pretty good, pretty great. He has only a 2% movement growth, so it's not likely he's going to get any more, but 7 is pretty darn good. A rank in staves and A rank in light magic gives him plenty of good utility. He can use Nosferatu, he can tank, you could give him Wrath if you truly wanted. A rank in staves means he can use any staff in the game, which is pretty fantastic, and he also comes with Nihil. So negates all enemy combat skills except for Nihil itself. There's only a few instances of this in this entire game, and I missed out on the scroll itself, which is unfortunate. But if you want a Nihil user, he's pretty decent at that. I just wouldn't say he's the best. We're just going to move Sias here. That's going to become very plainly obvious as to why we're doing that in a moment. We are going to rescue Sias. This also might seem a bit silly after we just moved him. And then we are going to talk to Sias.
A priest? You're the one that led the children to safety? Indeed. I did so on behalf of Sir Sed of the Magi. Thank you for taking us in. Think nothing of it. If anything, you deserve all the thanks for seeing the children out of the city. Leave the rest of the fighting to us. You should get somewhere safe, Father. Ah, now that I get a good look at you, I take it you're Prince Leaf. That I am. How did you know? There's no time. Listen closely. You must take this sword with you and keep it close at hand. This is Braggy's blade.
You'll need it if you're to defeat Raedric. Braggy's blade? You're giving this to me? Make no mistake, Sir Sed wanted you to have this. I gave him my word that I would deliver it to you. It's a sacred blade that can only be wielded by someone of holy blood, but Sir Sed knows little of swordplay himself, you see. A sacred blade. The holy weapon of Braggy himself. God himself must have sent this sword as an act of providence. I'll see that it meets Raedric's neck before long. Thank you for everything, Father. I'm just happy to have played my part. But remember, when the time comes to face Raedric, you must bring that sword with you. It's the only thing that can breach the enchantment which protects him. May we meet again, Lord Leaf. Braggy's Blade. Braggy's Blade. So this is preferential to, I believe, 5 units. I believe Nana, Leaf, Fergus, Dermot, and there might be one more, but I can't particularly remember all of them. Maybe Marita, I'm not entirely sure on that one. So this is a preferential blade that has 70 hit, 15 might, 0 crit, 1 range, 12 weight. Heirs of Rebels, pierces Fang's Curse, effective against armored, and gives Miracle. So this is a mighty weapon, and because it's effective against armor, and because it breaks the so-called enchantment that protects Raedric, that means that this weapon has 45 might on top of your strength, which is kind of ridiculously insane. I am going to show you that you do not need this weapon whatsoever in order to beat Raedric in the upcoming chapters. You do not need it. You just 100% do not. And the reason why is because, unfortunately, Sias and Sed were a little bit fibbing there. Yes, it's the only weapon that breaks his enchantment, but it's not the only way to KO him. So we're not going to have to worry too much about that. Now, why I moved Sias down, you only have to move him down 1, but I usually just move him here anyway for safekeeping, and then I rescued him, was because particularly we have someone who is going to show up due to me doing just that, once I end my turn.
What manner of heathen are you?
I'm Sed of the Magi. We've taken control of the city, save for one wing of the castle. Surrender now, and I'll spare your life.
Oh, how droll. But I won't fall for such an obvious bluff.
An obvious bluff, And Sed crits Alfand and kills him in 1 hit. And takes his position. So if you move your units down, that does not matter whatsoever. The sleep, none of it matters. If you move Sias down into the square that is around Castle Munster, Sed will appear. You want this to happen because it takes care of Alfand, for one, and then it allows Sed to destroy all of these units by his little lonesome, which I personally think is worth it, even though it does mean that he uses up his Forseti spell, his Wind Tome. Now, Forseti is nuts. We've seen it in Chapter 4X. It does not any longer have the unbreakable attribute that it had in 4X. So all of these are technically wasted uses. That's okay, because I do plan on using a Hemern on Forseti. Yes, we get to recruit him, which is pretty fantastic. The problem with that is that you have to make a hard choice. Now, granted, I've already said this, it's not a hard choice for me. You can only have one of either Sias or Sed. Now, Sias is a very good unit and does pose some good and interesting uses. However, if you're wanting him for his leadership stars, he loses 2 of them for the rest of this game.
Witness the fury of the Knights of Munster, you damned rebels.
Well, I don't think you're going to be able to do anything to Ced, especially with a flame sword. Are you kidding?
But I was supposed to.
Cease and it cease to exist, I guess. So, really, he only comes with 3 authority stars from the chapters onward, which is not all that great, being honest. It just is not. Alright, so we need to ensorcel Leaf, I think. Oh no, we don't need to. The one with sleep. Okay, so neither one of them can actually put to sleep Leaf. Nice, very nice. But what the problem is that Sias is really just a utility unit, whereas Ced is more than that. So we're going to go ahead and warp Leaf. And Shroff gets a movement star, which is always nice, not needed in the slightest. I'm going to go ahead and equip the light brand and talk to Ced.
Aren't you Sir Ced? Prince Leaf. Ha! So you finally arrived.
Sorry to have kept you waiting. I never did get a chance to thank you for rescuing me, Prince Ced.
Ah, so my secret is out. I see. How did you learn that I'm a prince? Did Karen tell you?
She did. If what she said is true, you stayed behind here to protect the people of Munster instead of returning to your native Celeste. I'm sorry I've proven to be such a worthless prince. Everything you've done through all comes down to my own weakness. I had a chance to liberate the city when last I was here, but all I could do was run. That was unforgivable of me.
There's no need to apologize, Prince. It's no fault of yours. My plan was doomed from the start. I had intended to liberate much more of the city and its people, but not even my holy weapon, the Tome of Forseti, could overcome the power of Radric's Loptrian Fang. Because of that one miscalculation, I lost many of the very people I'd come here to save. I'm to blame for all of this, not you.
Even so, I envy you, Prince Ced. The people hail you as a hero, and they're not wrong. You're everything that I'm not. Holy blood runs strong in your veins, and you can wield the very weapon your namesake once used. And I have nothing. I'm a world apart from the likes of you and Lord Seliph. I'm no crusader.
Prince Leaf, how could you say such a thing? Being a crusader means more than just happening to inherit the right kind of blood. For centuries, Jugdral was ruled by the Lopter Church and its empire. The Crusaders were the ones that overthrew their rule. And that's exactly what you've been doing for a whole year now, Prince Leaf. You fought and bled to liberate the people of Thracia. You walked a path that would have broken lesser men. But on you marched, waging your own holy war to flee countless souls from the grip of the Empire. Neither Lord Seliph nor I have any right to call ourselves better than you. You're the youngest of us. You spent your childhood being hunted, and you've never stopped fighting. In fact, you've been fighting for longer than any of us have. If you're not a crusader, who the hell is? Take heart, Prince Leaf. Your soul sings with the voice of Njorn. You've done her legacy proud.
Prince Ced, I don't know how to thank you. I look at you and Lord Seliph, see the scale of what you've accomplished, see the enormity of your armies, and then I think of my own mistakes, of the people I've failed, and I feel so small and weak, like a sickly child standing beside giants. Huh. Perhaps I am still a child in many ways.
Then that would mean I, holy weapon and all, needed to be rescued by a child? Do you mean to insult me?
No, that's not what I...
I was only joking, Prince Leaf, though this is hardly the time to fool around. Back to the matter at hand. My men and I have Radric pinned down in a small wing of the castle with no way for him to escape. Alas, there's a complication. He's using the few remaining children in the castle dungeon as hostages.
The Magi don't have the manpower to both storm the castle and keep fighting the Knights of Munster in the streets. Prince Leif, will you lend me your strength and lead your forces into the castle while the Magi keep order in the city? It would be my honor to fight alongside you. I, too, have a score to settle with Raedric. How fitting that this fiend would meet his end at the hands of the Prince of Leonster. God be with you, Prince Leif. And we get the best combative unit in this game. Said he's a Sage, level 14, pre-promoted, obviously, with incredible bases. His bases kind of spit in the face of Sias, and this is even including the fact that, or I should say disincluding his tome. So he has a follow-up critical modifier of 3. His growths are incredible. Some of the best in the entire game, which is wild, I would dare say. 75% HP, 10% strength, 75% magic and skill, 80% speed, 65% luck, 20% defense, 15% con, and 1% movement. It's not needed. It's really not needed. He is perfectly fine to take on everybody, literally everybody, with his tome for the rest of this game, regardless. There is nobody who can stand in his way, even Raedric. And that is because of his ability to crit with this monster. Preferential weapon, 90 hit, 20 might, 30 crit, 1-2 range, 6 weight. Said only gives plus 20 skill and speed, has high critical, exalted wind magic, and it's effective against flyers. Now, funnily enough, this is the only chapter in the game in which the effectiveness against flyers actually comes into effect. And if you want to see some disgustingly abysmal numbers, use Said in this chapter. Hit some people with it. Why don't you? So he has 1 authority star, 2 vigor stars, 8 movement, comes with adept, attack speed, percent chance to perform a consecutive attack. We're very familiar with this. However, look at his weapon ranks. A in staves, A in fire, A in wind, A in light, and a B in thunder. He can use everything but bolting. Everything in this game that's not preferential but bolting concerning tomes and non-dark magic. He can use every staff. Why in the world would you use any of that when you have Forseti at your fingertips? Especially with Hermern, you've got 100 uses of this absolutely incredible busted tome if you only use 1 Hermern on it. It's incredible. This man is a beast. Number 1 best combat unit in this game. One of the best staff units in this game. Why would you want anything else? So how you keep Sias and don't recruit Said, just don't talk to Said. When you get to the castle, rescue Said, remove him, and just escape with Leif. So what we're going to do here is a very obvious, in my humble opinion, KOing of this Lotrian sorcerer, because he happens to have magic enough to put some of my units to sleep. Why waste the time, right? Why waste the time? So obviously we still have some things to do. Because Sias leaves at the end of this chapter, and you do not get him after this chapter, if you have recruited Said, we're obviously going to give all of his items away. It's funny because both Said and Sias come with door keys, and that's kind of very pertinent. It's like the game is trying to say, look, if you don't have door keys, you've messed up. One of the reasons why I save the way I do in Fire Emblem, in which I save one chapter and then I go down into a new save file, save another chapter, so on and so forth, is so that I can go back a couple of chapters if I need to, and I've been doing that for many a year, because it's just prudent. It's intelligent, in my opinion. Move increased. Nice. Incredible. Yeah, so Said has a small chance, very small, incredibly small, to die in this chapter. While he's fighting against certain of the units of this chapter. But that's only if you take off Forseti, and that's only if you keep him off the gate.
So I just recommend that people don't do that, right? Alright, so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and seize the castle.
It certainly wasn't easy, but the gates of Castle Munster are ours, Prince Leaf. How shall we proceed from here?
The Magi can keep order in the streets while we storm the castle. Raedric has fled inside to make his last stand, and he means to use the captive children as hostages.
Then we have our work cut out for us. There's something you should be aware of, my prince. I have intelligence stating that Raedric's blade, the Lotrian Fang, is enchanted with dark magic that shields him from all harm. If we're to defeat him, we must prepare some kind of countermeasure before we enter the castle.
I'm one step ahead of you. I received a sword, Braggy's blade, from the priest that fled Munster with the children. It's a holy weapon that's every bit the equal of Raedric's blade, and more importantly, it can breach the magic protecting him.
That's quite fortuitous for once. Just make absolutely certain you have Braggy's blade in hand before the next battle, my prince.
What will you do now, father?
I have nowhere to return to.
There's only one thing I can do now. I shall go to the Tower of Braggy and pray for guidance. Can you tell me nothing more of your circumstances? How exactly did you end up here?
I can't say. Not now.
I see. I don't suppose there's any chance you could stay with us a little longer? We could use your help liberating Munster.
I've seen enough of battle for one lifetime. I already fear that my heart may have grown too accustomed to warfare. But know that I'll be praying for your good fortune from the Tower of Braggy. Be well, Lord Leaf.
And that is it for this episode. A wonderful chapter, in my humble opinion. Very fun, very quick, if you do it my way. I want to thank you for joining me. If you like my content, please upvote and follow, or like and subscribe, depending on your platform. And while you're at it, have a great and glorious day gaming.